So, after 2 weeks of working on this, I am finally done with every single one of my Sirens history. That includes 2024 Sirens, 2025 Sirens, even the 2023 Sirens. There were also Sirens that haven't been talked about or even mentioned in this channel. So, I'm just saying this, guys. It was just so fun making this video because I just like it whenever I go back to seeing old videos. Like the 2023 Sirens, or when old 500 was very young. So, this video is going to be pretty long, actually. Because remember, this is every single one of my Sirens that I did. So, yeah. Whether some of them are old and reliable, never stopped living, or had many incidences but never gave up, I present to you guys every single one of my Sirens history. And why not start from the beginning? The first Siren on this list is the large Thunderbolt, completed in late 2022 and could only rotate. He was originally supposed to have a cardboard horn, but was too heavy and was switched to a paper horn. Nothing much happened other than replacing the paper front to a mesh screen, literally an actual mesh screen. Anyways, he lost his blower box, and his blower pipe would be used for another Siren later in this list. As of now, large Thunderbolt has been fixed up to what he looked like 3 years ago. His mesh was removed and the line paper has been added back to look like the original 3 years ago, which makes him look new again, although having a damaged horn. The first functioning Siren to be made is the prototype SDL-10. He was completed in June 3rd, 2023, and was only a couple of months younger than the large Thunderbolt. It was actually the first time I would use a motor to work, and why not make a Siren out of it? And thus, Proto SDL-10 was born. His chopper wasn't making the noise, and goes for the same for all the prototype Sirens. His motor was the one that's making the noise. Well, I mean, it's obvious. Anyways, he was decommissioned in early 2024 with his motor taken out, but his shell is still here and in the same condition as it was when it was taken apart. He is currently chilling on top of his younger brother. The prototype P15 was completed on June 15th of 2023 and was the first rotating Siren to be built and was also way ahead of his time. He was larger than Proto SDL-10 and basically larger than all the prototype Sirens. He had his intake replaced with a larger intake just for only making it look accurate to an actual P15. His name kept on getting mixed up as a P10 and P15, but finally called P15. He would be decommissioned in late 2023 and would be used for spare parts. Most of it would go to a Siren later in this list. Most of his parts would be scrapped in early 2024, while few parts survived. Not much to talk about the prototype SDH-10, being completed somewhere in mid-2023 and had a decent life. He reuses a stator that was made years ago when I attempted to build a Siren. He was taken apart in early 2024 and is still here, but in pieces. Prototype Sentry 10V was completed in mid-2023. Not much happened to him since he had a very healthy life. The only flaw he had was how quiet he is. Even the vibration of the next Siren is louder than him. Proto 10V would later be taken apart and still exists today, and like Proto SDH-10, currently in pieces. Prototype SD-10 was completed in mid-2023 and immediately had problems. The chopper was so off-centered and it made him vibrate a lot. Proto SD-10 would have his top pole removed for a smoother performance, but still vibrated, but only a little. He wouldn't last for that long and would later be scrapped in late 2023. A very rough life for the Proto SD-10. The prototype 2T22 was interesting with his build and function. Being completed also in mid-2023, he was the tallest Siren I had at that time, and ran with 2 motors. This was during the time of me not knowing how it worked. I mean, Proto SDL-10 didn't have an intake. It would be the same for the Sentry 10V, SD-10, SDH-10, yada yada yada, whatever. Anyways, Proto 2T22 had 8 horns on top and 7 horns on the bottom. So, a 2T15? I don't know. He would be taken apart in early 2024 and it still has his parts laying around, but crushed and damaged. The very first functioning Thunderbolt I made is the prototype Thunderbolt 1000T, completed in mid-2023. Again, Proto Thunderbolt can rotate and run with AAAs. The head is very light, so it could rotate easily and not put stress on the other motor that helps it rotate. But this was during the time of where I didn't know Thunderbolts use blowers. So yeah, anyway, he would be taken apart in early 2024 with one of his parts being used for one of the Sirens later in this list. His horn is still here and in a bad condition. The rotor tube is scrapped and the rest of him is still in one piece. The prototype Thunderbolt 1003 was completed in mid-2023. Man, so many Sirens were born in mid-2023. Anyway, she was based on the Shamrock, Texas Thunderbolt 1003. Nothing much other than a single-tone chopper. Well, just a quick note, her solenoids are only just for looks and doesn't function. Well, yeah. Anyway, she would have a somewhat healthy performance until early 2024, where her motor is removed. She is still here and in one piece, but doesn't function anymore. Prototype Model 5 just had a decent life. Completed once again in mid-2023. Sounded similar to the Proto SDL10 and would get his motor removed in early 2024. Proto Model 5 would sadly never make it in 2026 and would be scrapped in 2025. The smallest Siren in 2023 is the Prototype 2001 SRN. Okay, how the heck is he the smallest in 2023? Like, literally, his predecessor is the same type and also the smallest. Another weird thing is Proto 2001 is somehow smaller than his predecessor. Okay, anyway, he was completed, like the past 7 times, in mid-2023 and could even rotate. The only problem he had is his battery compartment. It would affect his pitch and does the same thing even with a new battery. He would later be taken apart and his head would get scrapped in August of 2023. One of those parts of Proto 2001 has been reused for the next Siren. The old Hurricane was completed on August 8th, 2023 and was originally single-tone. He reuses the scrapped Proto 2001 motor and took his place too. Almost like old Cade replaced Proto 2001. Anyways, his wooden pole was replaced with a cardboard tube to make him more stable. He wasn't shown on YouTube for I don't know what reason, but would appear in the background of some videos in early 2024. Just like the other prototype Sirens, his story could have ended during early 2024, but in February of 2024, he would get a video about his rebuild with new parts. He would get a blower, a 3D printed chopper, and a new rotor tube. His blower pipe was from the large Thunderbolt and currently still uses the blower pipe. The old Hurricane was supposed to rotate but was too complicated to work with and was stationary for over a year. Old Kane would have many rotor tube, motor, and chopper replacements. He originally ran with AAAs, but would later use AAs. He would get his blower repaired many times and share a blower with another Siren later in this list. After one Siren had problems to rotate, Old Hurricane would use the motor and gears the other Siren used to rotate for his own rotation and works with him because his head is lighter than the other Siren. He would eventually reuse his blue gears that were 3D printed over a year ago. His final major upgrade is when he finally gets a 3D printed rotor tube. Makes him sound better and starts to look like his youngest brother. Old Hurricane is the oldest working Siren I have and would turn 3 years old this year. It's safe to say that Old Hurricane is truly a legend in this channel. The Prototype 500 was made in December of 2023 and it's just Proto P15 but rebuilt to look like a 500 SHTT first gen. But this Siren wouldn't last for that long and would be taken apart in early 2024. Just like the current status of Proto P15, most of its parts are scrapped while few parts survived. 2 parts from Proto 500 would be used for the next Siren. Now, the old 500 is completely separate from the Proto 500. It is separate because most of the old 500 are new parts and it only reuses the horn and that little rotator thingy, but was cut shorter to look better. Anyway, old 500 was completed on February 22nd, 2024 as the first Siren to be built in 2024. He had many changes from the chopper being replaced with a bigger chopper, becoming stationary at one point but gets to rotate again, and batteries changed from AAA to AA. The biggest problem he had was his battery compartment. Apparently, old 500 has gone through many battery compartments, and they either fail to get him up to pitch or stretch because it's made of cardboard. It's weird, one of those battery compartments was made alongside one of the other sirens coming up on this list, and their battery compartment still works amazingly well. Even the 3D printed battery compartment is bent from the batteries. The old 500 has a new, stronger battery compartment, but it currently has a terrible connection, so I might change it so that it could be healthy. The Thunderbolt 1000T B series was completed on April 19, 2024 as fully 3D printed and would reuse the motor from Proto Thunderbolt. He had no cardboard parts used on him and had a unique horn. The front of his horn was in 4 colors because I ran out of white filament. B series would have a chopper replacement but won't be put back together for weeks. B series would share the old Hurricane's blower for a while until he would get his own blower. He would have his rotor tube and motor replaced in early 2025 with a smaller motor and smoother rotor tube. He would finally get a rotator box and could actually rotate, but his head was too heavy for the motor, so he had to be stationary and gave the motor and gears to old Hurricane. He would still be healthy and get some siblings later in 2025. The 2001 SRN was completed on June 14, 2024 and is the smallest siren. He was originally made out of cardboard and used a 12-port from a 812 chopper. He would get problems later in his life, and it's mostly the chopper. Nothing much to say about him in 2024 because he was never repaired until 2025. In 2025, he would be rebuilt with a 3D printed head, but his rotator box would still be cardboard. His 3D printed head is actually smaller than his original head, but is actually louder than his original head. SRN has a little stand that was made for him and his brother, and they are both currently healthy. The Modulator 4016 was completed on July 7th, 2024 and was the first electronic siren. He uses a small Bluetooth speaker, and that's really it. No problems, obviously, and no fixing. The only change he had was when he was repainted white and got gray bands to look more accurate like an actual modulator. Nothing much to say about him. The modulator just had a decent life. Until he has to share his speaker for another siren later in this list. The new 500 was born on July 23, 2024 as a 1012 mystery siren. He would later be built as a 500 SHTT. His horn looks like a penetrator, but it would make sense because it was made of cardboard and making cardboard horns is really hard to make. Anyway, he would get his stator replaced with a new stator, but was too large for the chopper and made him very quiet. Even his older brother, who is smaller in size, is louder than him, so new 500 would get his stator replaced with a smaller stator that was actually too small and caused the chopper to rub against the stator. He would get his stator replaced again with a new stator, a tiny bit bigger but won't cause the chopper to rub. Now he is louder than his older brother. Today, new 500 has been really healthy and still sounds the same as he was when he was born. New Hurricane was born on August 24th, 2024 and was made in the same month a year later after his older brother Old Hurricane was born. He used to have a single shaft motor, a combined 810 chopper, and had one stator. He would get a dual shaft motor and another stator for the top. He originally had an actual 810, but was switched to a 4-5 chopper to make him louder. New Hurricane would get a rotator box in October of 2024. But it's stationary. He would have a few problems in his life, but it is easy to fix. He used to be the biggest siren at the time until one of the newer sirens was larger than him, earning him the nickname the 6-month king because he was the largest siren for 6 months. New Hurricane used to have a mattress blower, but would give it to his youngest brother. His height would change and would fall 5 times until he had a homemade blower and finally has a proper height. His blower would get a motor swap and many battery swaps, but still worked somehow. He hasn't tested for a few months until his blower would get repaired and finally test after being silent. His head would be repaired too, and more airtight, making him sound like his youngest brother, but quieter. New Hurricane is still the tallest siren to this day and is very healthy, making sure his voice can still be heard. The SDL-10 was completed on September 3rd, 2024 and is a very interesting siren. He would fall 17 times in his life, but is still healthy like nothing ever happened. He remained the same since its completion in 2024. SDL-10 will get some damage from his intake and his horn on his second or third fall, but sounded healthy. His battery compartment was built alongside with old 500's new battery compartment, but SDL-10's battery compartment worked better even though both the compartments are the same design. SDL-10 would reuse the same motor that Proto SDL-10 had. Nothing really much happened on him, but he would reuse one of his predecessor's parts. Model 2T was completed on December 6, 2024, and that's all. Nothing much happened on him, other than being built with paper cones, just to get a 2023 feeling. 2T22 was born on December 13th, 2024, and wouldn't be worked on for months. Only 6 of the 22 horns would be 3D printed because I ran out of filament. I think. When I finally acknowledged the 2T22, I continued the project and printed the top cone and all 22 horns. He would fall and break a few horns, but is still healthy nonetheless. He is currently chilling next to new 500, and I'm glad he is finally completed. Now, the Cyclone was originally supposed to be a P50, but changed because it was too complicated at that time. He would be a Cyclone and completed on February 7th, 2025 and has a weird defect. If he isn't tested for a while, his chopper would rub against the stator, but the solution is kind of smacking him lightly and the rubbing would stop. Very interesting for the Cyclone to have a unique defect. Hurricane MK1 was born on February 13th, 2025 and was made with an MK2 stator. He would use the original 810 choppers that used to be on New Hurricane, but the choppers was proven to be quiet again and would switch to a 5-6 choppers, making him a 10-12 siren, kind of. MK1 would share a blower with New Hurricane until getting his own in 2025. He would be built stationary, but would get a gear system that is strong enough to rotate him. He would reuse the gears from the B-Series Thunderbolt and would help him rotate for a couple of months. His horn's throats would get modified to be smaller and to look a bit more accurate to the real thing. The rotator would show problems and would lead him to not rotate because of how complicated it is. His rotator box would change from a rebuilt rotator box, but would get his original back because it actually fits in the gear system. His stator and choppers were eventually get replaced with a MK1 stator and smaller choppers that fit in the stators. The recent major repair or replacement is the gears. The gears would get replaced with new 3D printed gears that are the same model, would make him rotate smoother. The blower pipe was also replaced with a new blower pipe, and this made him a few inches taller. All he needs is new blower batteries and a battery compartment for his chopper. Sentry 10V was born on March 3rd, 2025 without his horns, making him look like an incomplete Sentry 3V8. He would later get his horns 3D printed and completed, but he would have a slight defect. 10V would sound like he is running with a blower while testing, almost sounding like a Thunderbolt 1000. The problem was never solved, but is likely how the chopper is built. Maybe in the future, his original chopper would get replaced with a redesigned chopper. Completed on March 12, 2025, the Whan Vortex became the largest siren and shares Modulator speaker. Being bigger than New Hurricane and other big sirens, he would use the same speaker as the Modulator but was put in either the second or third tubes. Even though he might be the biggest, he isn't the loudest after being beaten by a Hurricane, and that Hurricane story is next. 3D Hurricane is the loudest siren I have. Being born on March 31st, 2025 as a stator assembly, he would be different to his brothers. His head would be fully 3D printed, increasing his sound and his weight. He would use New Hurricane's original blower box and mattress blower. Since his head is 3D printed, he would bend the top of the blower box, giving him a slouching look, and would be supported by popsicle sticks. That would only hold him for a couple of months until being replaced with stronger plastic dowels. He would go through a modification where he would try to use the original 810 chopper to see the results, and just like the past 2 attempts, made him very quiet. He would go back using his 4 to 5 choppers and never have another internal modification. 3D Kane would not like to accept a battery compartment for a couple of months until finally accepting one in late 2025. 3D Hurricane is currently chilling next to his older brother, New Hurricane, and would still be the loudest siren. The 2001 16T is a custom dual-tone 2001 SRN, being completed on May 6, 2025, and would be the younger brother of the 2001 SRN. He was a 4 to 6 chopper because of his size, but if he were to be a real siren or larger, he would have a 812 chopper. He is the exact size of the SRN, but a little bit larger than his brother. The only thing that makes him larger is the length of his horn. He would have his model released on printables, but having a 3D printed model of his horn and nose, making my 16T almost like a prototype because the printables version would also get a 3D model of the rotator box in late 2025. He fell in July of 2025 and his chopper disconnected from the motor shaft. Instead of taking him apart, I used something small to fit in the intake holes and tried to put the chopper back on the shaft, and it was somehow a success. I don't know how, but it just attached back on like nothing ever happened. He was supposed to be the last siren I would make because I was out of space at that time. That's why he has a paper horn and a cardboard rotator box, so he could be a mix of old and new materials. As of now, the 2001 16T is still very healthy and never had any problems after that July incident. Let's just hope that it doesn't happen again. This siren had many changes with his chopper and stator. Fresh 500 was born on July 4th, 2025 and already had problems. His chopper was a bit off-centered, the stator was too small, and the motor he was using wouldn't let him go up to pitch. Fresh 500 wouldn't get worked on for a while and would be in pieces for months, until he would finally get worked on. He would get a stator replacement and a motor replacement, and a redesigned chopper for the new motor and to look more accurate. His horn would be 3D printed and detailed to look like a 500 SHTT first gen. He looked similar to his older brother, Old 500, but the difference is the size and the color of the stator. Old 500 stator and chopper was red, while Fresh 500 stator and chopper is white. Fresh 500 is currently well and would forever remember his failed past, but now successful, almost like he never gave up living. The very first siren to be based on an actual siren is the Thunderbolt 1000, also known as Mini T75, being born on July 13th, 2025 and used to have the same motor B-Series has. The motor would later be removed due to it not performing well, and I would have to redesign the rotor tube to fit the bigger motor, or better motor, however you like to call it. Anyway, Mini T75 would also be the first siren to be painted and was painted to look like the actual T75 Thunderbolt, but before it was restored. Fun fact, the Thunderbolt T75 was the very first Thunderbolt I saw, and that's the reason why this little guy exists. Mini T75 would prove to be powerful when he tested on 3D Hurricane's blower. Don't ask why I did that. Anyway, he is the most complex siren I made, and it's mostly because of his paint. And also, he is one of few sirens to have a mesh screen, if you count the mesh on New Hurricane's blower. Time travel a few months later, and on September 3rd, 2025 is not only SCL-10's birthday, but it's when the Thunderbolt 1003 was born. The 1003 was heavily recommended by people asking me, and still asking me even though she exists. Anyway, her solenoids were too complicated to work on such a scale, but somehow works. Kind of. The rest is the same model of the Thunderbolt 1000T, but modified the horn to be shorter just to fit the solenoids. As of now, the 1003 doesn't have a rotator box, mainly because I am working on other projects. I was supposed to base off my 1003 as the Shamrock Texas 1003, but just stopped thinking about it because it was already complicated enough to work with the 1003. And my idea was to make the 1003 look like the Shamrock Texas 1003, but if it were to be refurbished. But like I said, just didn't get that idea, and I just don't want to do that anymore because, I mean, it's already complicated for me to do the T75 to look like T75, so it's already a pain. The P50 was just built and is the youngest Siren, born on December 18th, 2025 as the most recent Siren. He was originally supposed to be built with cardboard parts, but thanks to the new 3D printer, I could print out large things, and one of those is P50's parts. As of now, he currently has his horn attached and would later get his other parts in the future. I ran out of filament and had to use leftover blue filament to complete his horn, and I kind of like him having a blue ring around the front of his horn. P50's chopper is very small, but somehow he is pretty loud. Not only his chopper is small, but his motor looks tiny compared to the rest of them, except for his chopper. He also reuses the original intake that he had and glued on top of the new intake just to make him a little more louder. One more thing, P50 is only 5 millimeters smaller than New Hurricane, so New Hurricane would still be the third biggest Siren. There were 4 large Thunderbolts made before Large Thunderbolt, but they are all gone, not even lasting for a year. No pictures of them exist for the past 3 Thunderbolts, but the 4th had pictures but was lost for I don't know what reason. The Large Thunderbolt is the 5th one to be made and was stronger than its predecessors that were either fully paper or partly cardboard. There was a small Thunderbolt that rotated by using a solar panel. He was taken apart in early 2023 and would be scrapped in early 2024. What's left on him is the base that he used to sit on. There was an 8-port Siren made in early 2024, but the Siren was only made just to test the blower I made to see if it makes it sound better. Spoiler alert, it does. That blower will be used for Old Hurricane, and the 8-port Siren would be taken apart. The chopper will be reused for the next 8-port Siren. There was a Siren that used the 8-port chopper from the previous Siren and looked like a Sentry Siren. He was taken apart in mid-2024 and I don't have pictures of it, and only a horn would live. The chopper would survive and is currently chilling inside the chopper bucket. There was a large 6-port Siren I made in early 2024. He was fully cardboard and originally used Proto SDL-10's motor. He had another side with an 8-port, but would get scrapped for not performing well. He was the last cardboard chopper Siren I made and would lose his motor in late 2024 for the new SDL-10. He is still here and one of few Sirens to still have his cardboard chopper. This Siren was a mix of a 500 SHTT first gen and a 500 DHTT. He was built in early February of 2024, but wouldn't perform well. He would only last for a week and his head being reused for the old 500 and the rotator box would be scrapped. There is original picture of him but was lost. The only thing that is left of him is plans of making him, and that was the picture for this story. There used to be a Thunderbolt 1000T that has a 4-5 chopper. He was built in early 2024 and his rotor tube was fully cardboard and had a motor sticking out of the top. I don't know what happened to him, but possibly lasted for a couple of months until being taken apart for I don't know what reason. A mystery 812 Siren was built in late June of 2024. It was a custom Siren I was making, and it had a Cyclone-like stator mixed with a giant box behind it and had a battery compartment on the outside. It was supposed to be a rotating Siren, but I didn't know how it would rotate and the design of it. He would be taken apart in mid-2024 with his motor and battery compartment reused for the new 500. Oh, seems like you guys reached the end of the video. Well, I hope you guys learned that some Sirens never lasted for that long, others have lasted very long, and some Sirens that you guys probably haven't heard of. I didn't even remember that 4-5 Thunderbolt I was building, and even building that custom 812 Siren. So, making Sirens is complicated. Whether some of them are complicated in their own ways, while others kept on getting recommended even though it's already built. Some of them are unique with their own defects, while others are just completely forgotten. I hope you guys liked this video. A very long video. I haven't made a video this long for a while. And see you guys in the next Siren test.